Hi everyone, and welcome to my session about how to use the Piwik PRO API. I promise to give a session that is suitable for beginners. And as I know from several recordings that I did before, 25 minutes is really challenging. So I would advise that we jump right into the topic, and I share my screen. All right. So what you see now is a Google Colab notebook. So there are no slides in this presentation because I want to show you how to use an API, and using slides is not the ideal method to do that. So we will see code and run code and all that stuff. In order to do that, I decided to use Google Colab. Google Colab is a machine that is provided for you by Google in the cloud. And you can just open up a browser, go to colab.research.google.com, create a new notebook, and start coding with R and Python. So Google Colab notebooks, if you've never been there, consist mainly of text and code, as you can see here. And why I decided to do this instead of something like Google Apps Script, for example, or something else, is that you can build in tiny pieces. So every code block, we can run this code block, which doesn't do very much, but we can we define a variable right here. And if you then add another code block, then you can really use the results from the code block before. So if we start building something, we can build it step by step by step and use the results from the previous step and all the previous steps in our new code block. So there's no need to run the whole script again and again and again in order to see what you get from an API, how you can transform it and all that stuff. And you can do it step by step. And this is why I decided to use Google Colab for this presentation. So if you now want to print out what's inside test here, we can do that, and you can see the variable still lives as long as the machine is running, and we can use the previous results. All right, so let's get started with the Piwik PRO API. First of all, there's not the one API, but there are several of them. We will mainly work with the analytics API, and you will too, I guess. But you can manage the data collection, surely data collection, but also the CDP or content manager, tag manager, and all that stuff, and an administration part. This is where we will send our first request to. And in order to send a request to Piwik PRO, you need credentials. So the first step for you would be to log in into your Piwik PRO account, click on your email address, go to API key. Sorry for the German user interface here. Then you can create a new key, give it a name, and then you will end up with a client ID and a client secret. Just copy them to the clipboard, note them in a safe place. I decided to use the safe place that Google Colab offers. There's a secrets manager where you can just add your secrets, give them a name, and then use this code snippet to access your secrets. So this is what we will see. But to get started, it's totally okay to paste the secrets into your code as long as it's code that only you can access. So if you want to paste it into something that lives on Google Colab and maybe is shared with your colleagues, it's up to you to decide. So I would just use the secrets manager. Okay. So if you never worked with Python, there's a block with Python basics in here, where you can see how need to know Python stuff, I call it, things are imported. So we will import some libraries, let's call them libraries, in order to get functionality that we need, and how we work with variables and arrays and dictionaries. But I guess there's no time to go through all that stuff. So you will get a link to exactly this notebook at the end of the presentation, so you can follow along and take your time and read through all the information I added there. But let's start using Python. So our first API request should go to something a little bit easier than the Piwik PRO API. So I decided to use agify.io. There's an API where you can send a request to, add a few parameters, and get something back. And this is what you always do when you work with APIs. Usually you send a request to a certain endpoint. So the endpoint that we call right here is the address, and then there's a parameter called name. I added my name and a country ID for Germany. And then when we call this URL, we can do this in the browser right here. Let's open up the sample URL. Then this is what we will get back. It's a count, so how many Markuses are there in this region, and what is the, I guess, the median of the ages, and this is the value 50. And this is what we want to have. All right, so if we now run this cell, we will see several stuff. So first of all, we import a package that makes it easier for us to send a request. There we have a, let's call it class, where we can have a method like get. We can send post requests also, and then URL, and we get a response back. We store the response, and then we can, if we want to, just look at the response alone. So this would be the response. You can always mark something and just execute the marked portion of the code. And I did that just for the variable, and so we see what's inside the variable. And the print statements below here show us what's inside this response. And there is a status code. So if we run it again, we'll see the status code of 200, and then we see the text. So this here, the text that comes back, and this is the text. But working with text programmatically is not the easiest way to do it. So we have, fortunately, a method to transform this text into something that is called a dictionary in Python, or an object in JavaScript. So there's just a slight difference. There are different delimiters, but it just looks like the same, a little bit different formatting. But the upside of having a dictionary is that we can access several values from the dictionary by using the key. So as you can see, there are always key value pairs inside these curly brackets. And if you just want to have the age, so this value, we can execute this line, and this accesses the response, then makes a dictionary out of that, and then we can access one single value by naming the key like this. So this is how it works, and if we do that and just execute this line, then there's the 50 we wanted to have. Run this stuff all over again, and then you have all the lines we saw before. All right. So now, if you already have your API token, your API credentials, then you can get an API token. Why would you need an API token? We just called an API without authorizing, so Agify doesn't know who we are, and there is a, I guess, according or bound to my IP address, there's a limit of 100 requests that I can do without signing in. But you wouldn't want Piwik PRO to give anyone data without signing in. So you will have to authorize, and then you can call the API and tell Piwik PRO to give you the sessions for the last 30 days or something like that. Okay, so getting an API key is described in the help files right here. You will have all those links inside the notebook. When we want to create or use the credentials that we have. In order to get an access token, we have to send a request, and we already know how to send a request to your instance, and there's the endpoint /auth/token, and then we have to add our client ID and client secret here in the payload. So this would be the cur request in order to get your credentials back, and then you would get something like this, and we already now know the format. So this is a dictionary that we could, a text that we could transform into a dictionary, and then there's an expires timestamp in seconds, and then finally there's the access token. And this access token, so this value here, your access token, is what we will need to send requests to the real API, let's call it like that, in order to get data back. So Piwik PRO knows who is calling and that we are really authorized to get the data we request. Let's get back to the notebook. This is what we do. We specify our site URL and the client ID and client secret, so you could paste them right into here or use the secrets manager. This is what I did. The site URL is not so secret, but the client ID and client secret I get from the secrets manager. Then I built the payload that we just saw. We have to specify the grant type, client ID and client secret. And then we just do the same as we already did here for the Agify API. We send a request. This time it's a post request. And the endpoint consists of our site URL and then the /auth/token. We add the payload here, and then we will get a response. And the token lives inside the response in the key access token, as we already saw in the example. If we run this now, we will have a token. I don't print it, but it's already there. So if you want to take a look at my token for the next 30 minutes, which should be safe because this is a recording, this is how the token looks like. So this is my token, and your token should look something similar. All right, with that token that is stored from this cell, so we can access it now in all the following cells as long as we don't take more than 30 minutes, then it would expire and we should run this cell again. We can now get all the sites from the API in our first call. So the endpoint here is /API/apps/v2. And I added some parameters like sort by name, which is quite futile because there are only 2 sites in here, but it's just for demo purposes. And now we add a header. This is new. And in our header, we use our token in order to authorize. So Piwik PRO knows who we are. And then we just print out the data and see what we get there. So if we print out the data, then maybe there is more than just the data. So let's take a look at the raw request. Or the raw response. So there's a meta block and a data block. So here we can see the totals and then all the information about the 2 sites that I have in my instance. So this would be how you can get data out of Piwik PRO and access the information. And then it's your turn to extract the information you really want. Like you don't really need all that stuff. You have typically you have a question and want to see something like what are the names or whatever. So you could iterate through the results now and work with the names and build a list of all the names inside. But we want to get some useful report data. So let's do another request. This time it's really the reporting API. And here you can see which parameters you should and could add. And here you can see a request, how it could look like. So you have to specify the columns you want to get back and a date or date range and some filters if you like to. And then you will get a response, which will consist of a data block and a meta block again. So let's do that. Here are the parameters that we just saw. These are the columns I want to get back from the API. And then we do the whole stuff again. We send a request, a post request to the endpoint specified in the documentation, add our header, and this time we add a payload that consists of our report request. So this report request will be read by a Piwik PRO instance, and then we will get some data back, and we just look at the raw data. Okay, run that cell. And here are the information we get back with the meta block and account and all that stuff. But you wouldn't want to work with this raw JSON format. You can perfectly get a CSV back, but a CSV is text also. But if you want to do something with code, then usually you want to transform that into arrays, dictionaries, whatever. Fortunately, there's a package for that as well. So we can import a pandas. So we'll stumble upon pandas all over the place if you do something with databases or data and Python. And think of a pandas data frame as something like an Excel sheet. So we want to get our data and want to have something that we could recognize better like an Excel sheet. In order to do that, we take the response that we got back from the API and access only the data block, and then we tell the data frame the names of the columns by adding the columns from the meta block. So meta.columns would be this. And if you run that cell, we already have something that we can recognize. So this looks like data we can work with. What's not so sexy is this header. So the next block would be something like transformation. Well, this data already looks quite usable, but for now, let's transform the data just by making a copy of this this response and then rename the column to just date, and then sort that stuff and print it out again. All right, so now we see a table that we could export, build a visualization, or whatever we wanted to do. So transformation was not that very hard, but we already got only the columns we wanted to have and just had to rename one of them. Sometimes transformation is a little bit more complicated, but in this case, we could just start visualize the data. And I added 2 demo visualizations that I didn't really write myself, but I asked Gemini. So adding another upside of using Google Colab would be that you have always access to Gemini. So we could try to generate a code or view recommended plots, or just add a new cell right here and generate something like create a plot of sessions by date from, how did we call it, report df. Now we get some code generated, and if you run it, there is some kind of visualization. This might not be the one you like to have, but without knowing anything about how to code, you could just add a new code block below, and the whole notebook is your context. So you can tell Gemini to repeat the previous plot, but get rid of the grid lines, or format the dates in a different way. And after 2 or 3 iterations, I guess you will get to a point where you have a decent result. So let's just run those 2. This is less code than you just saw in the example, and it's a little bit clearer. And you can have even an optimized version with a little bit of titles and subtitles, and this could be your final version of the visualization. And now you can store that, print it, export it to a Google Sheet, or put it inside a presentation or whatever. The fun stuff is you can automate all of this. So if you use Gemini or your own Python skills or a colleague's Python skills, then you can create a lot of useful reports without having to open up the UI at all. The last block here shows you how to save the data, because saving data is something that you usually want. We take the report data frame and transform it to an Excel sheet and to a CSV. And if we do that, we will see that there is a report that is saved and then downloaded. Because if you don't download, or you can just click on here and then the download starts, I guess, or double click and then you get a download. If you don't download this stuff, then as soon as the machine dies, your information dies. You don't want that, and so export it to your local machine or export it to your Google Drive or whatever. Ask Gemini how to export a data frame to Google Drive and you will get a decent answer. All right, so this is all I can show you in this brief demo, but be assured that it can be fun if you don't rush through all this stuff. So if you want to get your feet wet yourself, then here's, first of all, the link to this presentation notebook. So if you want to get to follow along all those examples, you can download exactly this version of the notebook. And in this version, there are several other links. One of them leads you to a more detailed version, which can take several hours to work with. But you can see stuff like different visualizations, different chart types, how you can handle limits or export your results, how you handle expired tokens, and even talk SQL to your data. So there's a lot in there, and I guess if you start with this one and then work through the other one, then you have all the building blocks that you need to build whatever you want to do with the Piwik PRO API. Okay, so let me show you just how you get to your own copy. So if you open this link, then you will end up here, which is a GitHub gist where the notebook lives. So this is my copy of the notebook, if you want to call it like that. But if you open it in Colab by clicking on this button, then you will have the opportunity just to make a copy in your own Google Drive, for example, and then work with that. You can add your own credentials into the secrets manager, would be the best thing, I guess. And then have fun using the Piwik PRO API. All right. The link will be in the chat, I guess, and I will be around for answering your questions. I wish you a good day. Bye.